Well, hello there, and you join us here today to talk to Mr. Matt Farah again. You might remember we spoke to him recently about cars and watches. Now we're going to talk to him specifically about his watches. If you like watches, Watchfinder has watches. Check out watchfinder.com. You've got a pile of very lovely watches. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your fascination with watches and the watches that you have, and perhaps the watches that you've made?
Sure. I wasn't always into watches, although my father bought a Rolex Submariner when I was younger and wore it every day, still wears it every day. He's had it for 40 years. So I got when I had a bar mitzvah. It's a Jew thing. I got a Tag Heuer Formula One, if you remember that watch from the 90s with the fiberglass bezel, right? So
yeah.
that was my first watch, quartz watch, and I pretty much wore that, all through middle school and high school. And when I never gave much thought to it. I knew it was a decent watch, but that was about it. And I was always into cars, but it wasn't until when I moved out here to California from New York, my father got me this watch as a going away present, and this is a Rolex Kermit, the Submariner, the green bezel, and this was a going away, good luck, start your business, be well, and I knew that a Rolex Submariner was a very high quality watch, but I didn't know anything really culturally beyond that. It was just, okay, it's a nice high quality item. It'll last me the rest of my life. And this one is green. That was really it. We're gonna have some feline visitors, by the way. Cricket,
That's
would you like to say
fine.
hello? Cat butt. Come here, sweetie. This is Cricket. I have 4 cats, and this one is insane. So he gave me the green bezel, and that was my only watch. That was just my watch. And the thing about one of those is it goes great with every outfit. So, if you only had to have one watch, I mean, what a great option, right? Wear it with a t-shirt, wear it with a tux, wear it in the pool, wear it, in the desert, like goes with everything. So it never occurred to me that I would need to have more than one watch. And it wasn't until I started making more like car friends in LA that were into watches that were like, hey, that green bezel isn't just, here's what that means. And then that turned into, well, what does this red and blue bezel mean? And what does this mean? And what does this mean? And sort of the nuance of it became interesting to me as you learn. And once I started to get a little more successful, I felt a little weird because I was like an insecure. My parents are fairly well off, and I wanted to make my own way, separate from them. That was important to me. And I said, I felt, although I love this Submariner, I felt like I want my own thing to be proud of. I don't want to wear this watch that Daddy gave me. So I then bought my own Rolex, and that was all I really knew. And then I made a friend, my friend Chef Carl Ruiz, who unfortunately passed away in 2019. But he really got me down the rabbit hole of other things. He was a huge Seiko fan, and we were talking about, taught me about the vertical integration of Seiko and how you get so much that you get from these higher end brands, but at a really affordable price. And from there, it was, I became interested in micro brands and these little artisans that make this stuff. And I became friends with Cameron Weiss of Weiss Watch Company, who I got to make me this Weiss American issue field watch, this is a one of one. This is the only one they've ever made with a Bugatti French Racing Blue dial. So Cameron is a very talented guy, and then I started doing custom Seikos, modified Seikos. I like modifying my cars, so I would do these modified Seiko turtles with different straps and different bezels and a top hat crystal and some fake aging on the loom and then that went all the way off the deep end to these full build Seikos like this one with a Tahitian black pearl dial, which is just epic. And this one sort of got almost like a fake Yachtmaster vibe to it, but it's different enough that it's not a fake Yachtmaster, but it's got that black ceramic bezel, rubber strap with a deployant. But I really wanted to do this Tahitian black pearl. That's one of my favorite dial materials. And at the time I couldn't afford the Rolex that did have that. Of course, for my 40th birthday, I did end up getting the Daytona with the Tahitian black pearl dial. So this was a happy 4-0 present to me. And there's I got other watches. Now that I was into watches, that became a thing that I got the Pepsi GMT on the Jubilee, the modern one, for a wedding gift from my parents, and I bought myself some other ones, and I bought some oddball stuff because I really like various aspects of design, such as the Icopod Hemipod, which I really love. I love Mark Newson, such an interesting designer. I can't be trusted with vintage stuff. I'm too clumsy and I break it, but I really wanted a speedy, and I got this 1966 pre-moon Speedmaster from the guys at Craft and Tailored. And this one, if this was a totally mint, the Speedmaster nerds, if it was one of those perfect ones, it would be very, very expensive. But this one actually has a service movement in it from like 1968 or something. And when it's on your wrist, who gives a shit? But because of that, it was $6,000 instead of $60,000, and I got, my wife's name is Hannah, and when your name is Hannah, there's a lot of banana stuff around. It's like the way it goes. So I really wanted the yellow dial. I got the yellow OP41, which I love. When I started getting into watches in like 2014, 2015, big face watches were still in. So I kind of went through a big face phase. But then I started to realize, as I bought all these watches and I was sponsored by a few different watch retailers, Crown and Caliber, Bob's Watches, folks like that, they would let me demo watches. So I actually got to have a rapidly compressed cycle of trying and deciding whether I liked or didn't like, the kind of cycle that would be very expensive for a lot of people. A lot of people buy shit, they and then a week later they're like, actually, I don't really like this. That's an expensive way to go through life. I did this podcast called Watch and Listen with Cameron Weiss, and it was sort of me, the novice, and him, the watchmaker, him teaching me, but then me researching the brands. And so with that and the loaner watches, I got to really compress a lifetime of watch knowledge into about 2 years. And I ended up in this sort of place where I have a very specific taste now of what I think is the best kind of watch. And for me, if you look across the collection, for the most part, it's 40 to 43 millimeters. Not necessarily hardcore sports watches, but definitely some water resistance, heavily favoring steel. Not necessarily divers, but stuff you want to be able to get wet. Not too thick. I don't like very thick watches. So I used to want a lot of complications. I don't really care about complications anymore. Now I really just, I want it to be able to sit under a long sleeve shirt nicely. And so my collection for the most part has been narrowed down to that subgenre of watches across all price points. And that led to this, which is my first watch design, which is called the Canyon, and I designed it with Notice watches. I didn't physically draw the thing, but I really worked with them on all of the not just the details, but also the dimensions, the depth rating. So this is 41 millimeters and 11.5 millimeters thick. It has a brushed steel Jubilee bracelet with a quick release. It also has a quick set sizing adjuster, so you can adjust the size or change the bracelet without any tools at all. That's great. 200 meters water resistance, sapphire crystal, anodized mint green dial, applied indices, really bright lume, a polished beveled black steel hands. The case back, it's not a display back. I didn't want that extra millimeter of thickness. I wanted to maximize the thinness there. So it's got stamped in the case back is the Angeles National Forest. It's a topographical map, which is pretty cool, along with the individual numbering, and it says the smoking tire on there. And so we did 100 of these. They sold out in 58 minutes, which was faster than I expected. This one is the prototype, so it's the only one out there now, and it's the one I get to keep, which I'm very happy about. And so this, the dimensions, the weight, the size, the features, the specs. I think that this watch, I'm very proud of it. It's a Lejeune Perrette movement, automatic with a 68-hour power reserve, very high quality movement. And I really wanted to offer something. These are $1,200, so they're not totally entry level, but by the standards of watches, they're pretty affordable. But I really wanted to offer something that was a very, very high quality item that could be either a step up from someone who is at sort of the Seiko Citizen Orient level, or a good kind of safety for someone who collects higher end pieces but wants an alternative for when they're traveling or when they don't want to wear an expensive watch, but that won't feel like they're slumming. You wear this on your wrist, and if this said Baume & Mercier or Bell & Ross or Tudor on it, this could be a $4,000 to $5,000 watch. I mean, I really believe that. I'm not saying it's a Rolex. It's not a proprietary metal, but it's not an 8-day power reserve, but it really, I think it's very hard. Most watches, if you spend $1,200 to $1,500, you're getting a $500 watch with some branding attached to it. Mm-hmm. And so with this, I wanted to really, when people receive these in the mail, when the orders are fulfilled, I want them to go, wow, this is a lot of watch for $1,200. And I've collected expensive watches and I've collected affordable watches. And I think with this Notice watch, you're really getting your money's worth. And I'm very proud of it. And I'll give you an exclusive. It's been hiding in plain sight right here. Here's an exclusive, which is we have a second colorway coming for the springtime. We'll be taking orders beginning in December, but I have the prototype, and it is the Sunburst Orange variant of the watch, which is a stunning gradient anodized orange dial. The mint green is sort of the winter, and this is going to be the summer. And based on the feedback, there was a lot of people who wanted the green one and couldn't get it, and we didn't realize the demand would be that high. But we're going to do 200 of these orange, so we'll have twice the production for the orange. Still want it to be pretty exclusive. I still want to sell out. And we will, but there were a few people that were, I didn't know it would sell out in an hour. I thought maybe you'd have the day, to buy one. So we're very proud of it. And the Notice guys are amazing. It's, Swiss movement, assembled in Los Angeles, designed in Los Angeles. So there's the end of my commercial.
Nice. You said there, you spoke about how you wanted to buy your own Rolex, having already been gifted one, but you wanted to buy your own. You kind of there is a certain need, isn't there? Like, I've made it on my own. I'm gonna treat myself, reward myself, and that can be a really great feeling. What's the feeling like to be given a watch that you have helped design and that has your branding on it? That must be an extra special feeling. What's that like?
It's really, really cool. I mean, it's really cool. Yeah. The feeling of when I said earlier, I was getting these demo watches to try out, and that's great. Most people don't get to do that, wear a watch for a month. And there's so many watches to me that looked amazing on Instagram, but I just didn't enjoy it all on my wrist. Lots of Panerais. I didn't like how the fit was. Lots of Tudors. the Rolex Sky Dweller, which I was obsessed with for like a year, and then I wore one for a month, and I was like, ugh, no. And others. Those are just the ones that come to mind. But to then get to, first off, you start with a sort of the two-dimensional, images, and they're showing they're showing us, okay, here's what the bracelet will look like. Here's what the dial will look like. The first time we went from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions, I was like, oh, this is it actually gets better. Like when it went from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions in CAD, it got better, it got depth. And then when he brought out the prototype, I was like, oh my God, like it's actually like so much better. And then I got to start wearing it, and it's one thing, it's great when I wear it because now I have the dimension of feel, and I know the weight is very balanced around my wrist, and the Jubilee bracelet, it feels, soft. It's got that softness that a Jubilee gives you, which I really love. It fits under a sleeve, and it's the right brightness, and it's the right, it's so legible and all that stuff. And then you wear it out and people they go, what's that? And then you're like, well, I've just designed something that is catching other people's eye. And then it feels like, okay, you didn't just make something that you wanted and that nobody else will be into. And we made something that a lot of people, that it resonated with a lot of people. And a bunch of people emailed me guys I went to college with that I haven't talked to in 20 years, emailed me and go, this, I don't really wear watches, but I'd like to buy one of these because it looks cool. And so it was really great. And I think in the 3 months since I've had the prototype, a lot of my other watches have been sitting in the box. And I really like wearing it, which is what you want,
Nice. Yeah.
So you are predominantly known for your work in the car industry, in the car space, but it sounds like you have become a watch influencer too, selling your own pieces. But as we saw a few days ago, you have influenced one of the biggest names in watch collecting into buying a Grand Seiko, Joe Rogan. I don't know if everyone has necessarily seen that podcast, but you laid down the line on Spring Drive, and now he has one. How does it feel to be this person who can influence some watches to that magnitude?
I don't know. I think this was before we started recording, but I mentioned that when I did that show, which was recorded, I think that show was from 2016 or 17. I went on that show a few times in that particular. Hello, Finn. That's Finn. You want to come sit with Daddy? That was when I really first started talking about Grand Seiko, and Grand Seiko is a brand that I love. I think they do incredible work. I've had quite a few of their pieces. I still do. I have the Lake Sua dial, which I think is just one of the most
amazing.
Staggeringly beautiful dials ever made.
Definitely
by anybody. This watch only costs $10,000. I know $10,000 is a lot of money. I'm not trying to be a snob, but like when you consider what Patek would sell you if they would sell you something for 10 grand versus what Grand Seiko will sell you for 10 grand. It's absolutely unreal. But to go back to the Rogan thing, when I went on his show and started talking about Grand Seiko, I got a letter from the CEO of Grand Seiko sent to my office, handwritten, thanking me for talking about the brand on such a large platform like that. And it's been great to see what they've done. I know some executives at Watches of Switzerland, and they told me that while other brands have their ups and downs, Rolex is a constant, Patek is a constant, and then the next big in-demand watches at these multi-brand boutiques are Grand Seiko, and that's just an amazing thing to see what they've done in really the last 10 years. And it's not like they just started doing it, but people are finally coming around to those watches as being true luxury items that they're made as well as a Patek, honestly, if you ask me.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Matt, for joining us. It's been a real pleasure having you. And dear viewer and listener, thank you so much for watching as well. Let us know what other guests you would like us to talk to in the show, and please make sure to like and subscribe as well. If you're looking for a watch, whether it's car related or otherwise, check out watchfinder.com. Goodbye.